So about tefillin. Now, on the right, we have here, this is from the Sefer Tami Hamin Hogim, Makoire Hadinim. The original Mechaber his name was Sperling. But then the Rabbi Weinfeld of Yerushalayim, who was the owner of Eshkel and subsequently formed another company called Shaila Moira, so he added diagrams. Zlobavitch is Shaykhus to Chabad, also. So he added diagrams to the very popular Sefer Tami Hamin Hogim. He completely retypeset this. It's going about 50 years ago or more. And so he included diagrams how to make Chabad Kesher, the four Shalyad, etc. But this is generic Sfard Minhag. So the Ashkenaz Kesher, if I'm not mistaken, is more like the squarish one, a double Daled. And this is the Sfard Kesher, which is more like a single Daled. And as you see from the back, there's two ways. One is where the diagonal is in front of the vertical. And the other one is where the vertical is in front of the diagonal. Now, my understanding from Mishnah Berurah is, and I think also from the Avnei Nezer, that they're not happy about this type of kesher because it's too easy to adjust. It's too easy to open and close, and a kesher should be a kesher shel kayama. So, Rebbe Zirkin, Rabbi Eliezer Zirkin's son, who Meir lives in Florida, is son-in-law of the late Ben Zion, Heknel of Shalom. So he tells me that his father, when he checked the Rebbe's tefillin, the kesher was indeed like this. In other words, the way which Mishnah Berurah is not so happy about, that's the way the Rebbe's kesher was. So I found that very interesting. And it's interesting how one thing leads to another. This week, someone sent me a question dealt with by Rebbe Shlomo Kluger. If a person is in prison, is allowed out of prison for 3 hours, sometime over Chanukah, should he go out for benching licht or should he go out for davening, for saying Hallel? And Shlomo Kluger says he should go out for benching for Hallel. He holds that Hallel is more important than benching licht. I didn't have a chance to look up Rebbe Shlomo Kluger's writing, but it's not Negea Lamaisa, just in Inyan. My first reaction would say that lighting Chanukah is more important than saying Hallel. And my logic is that when you say Hallel, it's your own inspiration. When you light the menorah, and it's especially if you put it by the window, so then it's reaching other people. So it's not only for yourself, it's for other people. Even at home, it's for your family. It's not just for one person. And so possibly something which is to be shared for others is more important than something which should be just for yourself. Now, looking at these two forms of the kesher, it's true that there's an advantage in the first kesher that it's more difficult to adjust it. It's therefore the kesher becomes a more permanent kesher. My question is, what will happen if someone borrows your tefillin? If it's easier to adjust, they will adjust it and wear the tefillin properly. If it's not easy to adjust, the likelihood is that they will wear the tefillin in a less than desirable, the less than perfect way. So there may be a svara to dafke, to have your kesher in a way that if someone else wears the tefillin, so it's a tiyelas harabim. For yourself, it might be more muhuder to have with a diagonal in front, but to be mazaka other people would be a mile to have it in a way that's easier for another person to adjust it. And of course, if they borrow your tefillin, they have to put it back the way they found it. That's without saying. I see there's a couple of chats. What about garlic powder as regards ruach ra? And then the response that surely garlic powder has been processed. Sure, I would say that it's not a piece of garlic. It's very much processed. I don't think that's a problem. I remember there was a need for some kind of hechsher on garlic powder, which I don't remember the detail. There may have been some kind of additional ingredient sometimes, and therefore it would require a hechsher. But not a problem with ruach ra. Okay, so we've been discussing a little bit about the tefillin a couple of weeks ago, and I was speaking with the boys in the Yeshiva Ktana, and I mentioned about not wrapping the ritzua over the knot the Shalyad. So they asked me where did I take this from, and I thought it's written in Shulchan Aruch, and I looked and I saw that it was not there. I started looking around. At any rate, a couple of days later, one of the boys, I'm very impressed, they did their research and they came up with there's a yechidus of someone called Zalmanov, Yisrael Yosef Zalmanov, who passed, his father was the famous Reb Shmuel Zalmanov. And when he was just before his bar mitzvah, he went into Tofshin Yud Aleph, I think, around then. He went into yechidus with his father. And as I say, he just passed away. The bar mitzvah boy just passed away recently. And there, in that yechidus, is reported that the Rebbe had said that when you you wrap around the Ritzuas, you shouldn't wrap around on the Kesher Shel Rosh, but on the Kesher Shel Yad, it's okay. Now, I have a sefer. I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, of the Minhagim of the Rebbe, called Orches Menachem. There's a section about Tefillin. So they talk about this, and they give a reference there to the following report. In Tofshin Zayin, in 1947, the Rebbe travels to Paris to greet his mother, who had just come out of Russia, and he was to accompany her to come with him to the United States. So whilst the Rebbe was there for a good few weeks, and there was Anash, there were quite a few of Anash in Paris at the time, and Rabbi Butman, who lives now in Tel Aviv, this is his memory of when he saw the Rebbe in Paris. So he writes the following. This was published in the His Teffillin journal, number Tov Lamed Tes, I think. So he writes the following. In the year Tofshin Zayin, when the Rebbe was about to leave Paris on the way back to America with his mother, he brought his tefillin with him. And it was the presence of my father, Reb Zalman Butman, and also Reb Tal Vilshansky. I don't know whether it was planned, this meeting. And the Rebbe had a discussion with them about the ukshartim, how do you do the kshir? You know, the Chabad kesh is a special way of tightening it as you wear it. At any rate, I'm going to skip to the second part, paragraph. The kesher lekipul, in relation to the way to wrap up the tefillin. So the Rebbe showed these two gentlemen, these two chassidim, the Rebbe Rayatz, mekapel sol ritzua shel yad kekan feyoina. There's a story in the Gemara of someone who was in the time where they were not allowed to wear tefillin, and he did wear tefillin, and then there was some policemen saw him wearing tefillin. They gave chase, and meanwhile he managed to pull off the tefillin, and he was holding it in his hand. It's a very small tefillin, and they asked him, "What's in your hand?" And he said, "It's the wings of a dove." That's based upon a pasuk in Tehillim that the wings of a dove is like a protection. And he opened his hands, and lo and behold, there were wings of a dove. So there's a Rebbe's here in the tefillin to the idea of kamfer yoina. And that's the reason why the minhag is to wrap the ritzuos around the tefillin on either side, reminiscent of the wings of a dove, which are obviously on both sides of the dove. So there's a lot of discussion whether that is between the Shel Rosh and the Shel Yad, or both of them individually. There's different ways of learning this. So therefore, it was significant that the Rebbe explained to them and told them that the Rebbe, as in the Frierdiker Rebbe, does the wrapping of the Ritzuas, Kekan Feyoino, also on the Shel Yad. But the Shel Yad, the Kesher, HaKesher Shel Yad, Nisha Michutz Ritzuas. But the Kesher is outside. So the Koloma HaRitzua, Kruch El HaTitura, the Ritzua is wrapped around the ledge on the side of the tefillin, and the kesher is a little bit pulled out. Now, we went to the discussion the other day, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, that there's a strong emphasis in the Zohar that the kesher should not move away from the tefillin. However, that in itself is questionable whether the Zohar is referring only to when you're wearing the tefillin, or even when the tefillin are in the bag. So, and there are eminent poskim, Kabbalim, who say even with the tefillin in the bag, the kesher should be touching. But it looks like the Rabbeim were not particular about that. And so when they wrapped up the tefillin, so he said to Frierdiker Rebbe, he'd pull the straps were mamish hugging the side of the tefillin. and the kesher was a little bit outside. So there are basically what we're seeing here is contradictory reports. Some say that the Rebbe was particular, was saying that it doesn't matter if you wrap the tzua over the tefillin, over the kesher. Some say they that it shouldn't be wrapped over the kesher. And either it's contradictory reports, or there were different times. I don't mean that sometimes like this or something like that. It could be that at different stages the hanhoga was a different way. Okay.